my estimate is that we're in a second recession right now in the United States. That is, we had Europe, certainly. So we had a technical recession in the first half of 2020, 2 consecutive quarters, down 5% in the first quarter, down 31% annualized in the second quarter. Then we had strong growth in the third quarter. Fourth quarter, we won't know the number for a few more days, but it looks okay, but not great. But the point is, you're working off a very low base. So it was sort of down 31% in the second quarter and up 33% in the third quarter. And everyone says, well, doesn't that get you back where you were? And the answer is no, because the 33 is off a much lower base. It's 33% of a lower number. But I make the point that the S&P 500, which is the major index, should actually be called the S&P 7, because there are 7 stocks bringing the whole index along. And we know what they are. It's Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Netflix, and Tesla. Those 7 stocks, because the S&P 500 is what's called a cap-weighted index. Your influence on the index is based on your market capitalization. Well, those 7 stocks are 40% of the capitalization of the entire S&P 500. So if they go up, the index goes up. More people buy it, it goes up more. More people buy it, it goes up more. So it's sort of a recursive function, but it has bubble dynamics. I wouldn't say go out and short it, because it's like getting run over by an 18-wheeler going 70 miles an hour. I don't want to stand in front of that yelling stop, but I look at it, I step back and look at it. It does have a bubble dynamic to it, but it'll go its own way. But the point is, that has nothing to do with the real economy. I've never seen the stock market so detached from the real economy. So people kind of look down their noses. They'll look at a restaurant and say, all right, you've got 20 wait staff and bartenders and you've closed, but that's only 20 people, and you'll reopen, get hired back. And no one seems to care. Well, first of all, I care. And I guarantee there's 20 people who are out of work care. But analysts who say things like that are missing a couple of things. Number one, that restaurant may not reopen. It may not be a matter of 3 months or 4 months or whatever, and then you reopen your doors. They're gone. They're closing up, walking away from leases, selling their equipment at fire sale prices. The jobs are permanently lost. Maybe they'll open another restaurant in another state someday. They're entrepreneurs, but not yet. That restaurant's gone, and those jobs are gone, number one. Number two, it may be a small enterprise individually, but in the aggregate, those small and medium-sized businesses are 50% of all the jobs in the United States and 45% of GDP. So you're locking down half the economy, or at best, greatly reducing capacity. So if you take half the economy and cut capacity in half by half, let's say, you've shut down 25% of your economy. How do you do that without a recession? Well, the answer is you can't. So the aggregate is huge. And again, the stock market will go its way, although it seems to have hit a little bit of an air pocket in the last couple of days. But the real economy is suffering. Many of those jobs are permanently lost. And then there are ripple effects that take time to play out. So you shut a restaurant, well, then they don't pay the lease. They break the lease. Well, what happens to the landlord? Well, if he's not getting rent, how does he pay the mortgage? And what happens to the mortgage? Well, it goes into arrears. And then that falls on the bank, except the banks have packaged these into commercial mortgage-backed securities and sold them to you and me. So, look in your 401k account in the US or any kind of superannuation account or savings account in the UK. And don't be shocked if you find, some commercial real estate mortgage-backed fund that was sold to you by some broker that's actually going to perform very poorly based on what I'm saying. So this could take a full year to play out. I did another interview recently, and there's a major hedge fund, and they said, Jim, you follow the Fed closely. What is the Fed doing? What's your forecast of Fed? I said, I do follow the Fed closely, and my answer is that they're impotent. They have no role. You can see what they're saying, but it doesn't matter. Rates are at zero. They're going to stay at zero. As far as the eye can see, money printing does not work because there's no lending and spending. There's no what's called velocity. So the Fed prints $7 trillion, gives it to the banks in payment for bonds, puts the bonds on the balance sheet. The banks take the money and give it back to the Fed as excess reserves. The money doesn't make it to the real economy. It just sits there. And so I tell people, you don't need to get beyond fifth grade in math. $7 trillion times zero is zero, meaning you can have all the money you want, but if you don't have velocity, you don't have an economy. And velocity, the turnover of money, the lending and spending part, is psychological and it's out of the Fed's control. You've got to basically change inflationary expectations. There's only one way to do that. And I talk about that at the end of my book, and that's to raise the price of gold. Now, you refer to it as $1.9 trillion stimulus package. That's what the Biden administration calls it. I call it deficit spending. In other words, it is deficit spending. The money is going out the door. It's real money, but it will not have a stimulative impact. Why?
Before we continue, help us by smashing that YouTube like button and subscribe now to this channel. This shows the algorithm that you value the information, and it helps us spread this message. Sharing is caring. Please like and subscribe now. Thank you. And now, let's continue.
The answer is that the money, at least to the extent it goes to individuals, $1,400 per household check, et cetera, people don't spend it. They're going to save it or they're going to pay down debt. But economically, paying down debt, paying down bills is the same as savings. In other words, you're shrinking your balance sheet. You're not buying a new car or a new refrigerator or new clothes or whatever. And the evidence is there. The U.S. savings rate has skyrocketed. If stimulus programs work, then why isn't the economy in better shape than it is? And in last April, the U.S. savings rate was 33%. Last May, it was still as high as 17%. And in June, it was still over 10%. Normally, 5% is considered kind of normal in the U.S. 8% is considered high. And now you've got these Chinese levels of savings, 33%, 20%, as the case may be. So what it shows is that just as money printing is not leading to any velocity, handing out money, deficit spending, in other words, is not turning into consumption. It's turning into savings. Now, savings individually, it can be a good thing. I'm not anti-savings. And certainly people, if you've lost your job, you're going to be saving. You're not taking your friends out to dinner. Even if you haven't lost your job, you're probably looking around. Maybe your spouse lost his job or your neighbor lost his job, or you're thinking, well, I still have my job, but maybe my company will shut down next week. And so I'm going to save, even though I still have my job, I'm going to save just in case. Economists call this precautionary savings, saving for a rainy day, if you want to put it that way. And that's what people are doing. If you're out of work, you're saving. If you're not out of work, you're worried and you're saving. And so those checks will not have that effect. But on a more big picture level, what's going on here? There's very good evidence, a lot of it by a number of academics, that when debt to GDP ratios, what's the national debt divided by GDP? When that ratio gets to 90%, the Keynesian multiplier goes below 1. And the Keynesian multiplier says if you borrow $1 and spend $1, you can get $1.20 of GDP or $1.10 of GDP because of the turnover, because of velocity that we talked about earlier. And that's true up to a critical threshold, up to a level. And that level appears to be about 90%. Beyond 90%, what happens is the Keynesian multiplier goes below 1, which means now you borrow $1, you spend $1, and you get 90 cents of GDP, or you get 80 cents of GDP. In other words, you don't even get your dollar back. Now, what's happening to the debt to GDP ratio? It's a fraction, right? So as you borrow the dollar, the numerator goes up by $1. But if the Keynesian multiplier is less than 1, the denominator goes up by less than $1. So what's happening to the ratio? It's going higher, because when you expand the numerator faster than the denominator, the percentage goes up. Well, I said 90% was a critical threshold. Before the pandemic, the United States was at 106%. So we're already in trouble. Along comes the pandemic, so the denominator shrinks because we had a recession. The numerator expands because we've had multiple multi-trillion-dollar bailout packages. The 1.9 trillion you mentioned, you're right, Shay. That's just the latest. We already had $3 trillion in 2020 and a $1 trillion year baseline deficits and a $900 billion year package last month. So you're looking at $7 or $8 trillion of debt over fiscal 2020, fiscal 2021. So pile that in the numerator. So now the ratio is about 130%. So who's at that lunch table? Well, it's Lebanon, Greece, and Italy. There's your lunch table. Those are the other countries, the super debtors that are in the same shape. And so so we're at a state now where you cannot print your way out of the crisis because of velocity, and you cannot deficit spend your way out of the crisis because the Keynesian multiplier is less than 1. So you can print all you want, spend all you want, but you won't get any growth, or you won't get commensurate growth. And there's no way out of this. This is a death spiral that always ends in one of three places: default, inflation, or higher taxes. We're not going to default because we actually can print the money. So take that off the list. Inflation is a solution. If you inflate enough, you can melt the real value of the debt. Higher taxes won't work because that'll slow growth even more. So inflation is the only way out. The problem is central banks don't know how to get inflation, although I tell the reader in the conclusion of my book exactly how to do it. There's a little recipe. You can do it yourself. But I don't know how many central bankers are going to read it and take it to heart.
What to do in such a situation? Inform yourself and keep your financial education strong. We from the Compact Group offer our loyal subscribers a free educational portal with first-hand monetary, financial, and economic knowledge. Enter our invite-only Insider Club by clicking the link below. You will get access to first-class information far earlier than the rest. We have prepared a special deal for all our members where you can access a giant pool of Robert Kiyosaki's financial wisdom for just $1. To find out more, simply click the link below and join our Insider Club absolutely free. But there is more you can and should do. Build up several streams of income. More and more people realize that they have to take their future in their own hands, but they don't know how and where to start. We from Compact offer our Insider Club members unique opportunities. Strengthen your financial muscle and get the edge. Click the link below. Become part of our free Insider Club. No financial obligations. But there's one important thing you have to know. You have to become active. So do it now. Become active and see you on the other side.